Hello, and welcome to the Cleveland International Film Festival's Film Slam Streams post-film conversation for The Third King. My name is Eric Siler. I'm a professor of film, communication, and media arts, as well as moderator of this conversation. We are very pleased to be joined by the director of the film The Third King, Christoph Oliver Strunck. He's a graduate from the University of Television and Film Munich School and has produced over 15 internationally awarded shorts and features. He released his first documentary, My Inner Voice, in 2013. His short film, he was the writer and director of The Third King, the film that you just saw, has gathered over 70 wins and nominations from festivals all around the globe, including Best Film, Best Cinematography, Best Directing, and so forth. So we are really in a treat today to have with us Christoph. Christoph, welcome. You're muted there, so you want to try it again? Welcome.
Hello. Nice to meet you all here, virtually in this case.
Yeah, Christoph says in Frankfurt. Christoph, we have some students that are watching us right now who are German, who are taking German as a language. You want to give them a special greeting?
Ja, ich sage ganz herzlich Hallo aus Deutschland und ich hoffe, jeder kann mich von euch verstehen. Und ich spreche normalerweise ein bisschen mehr Hessisch. Like this is like a special accent we have in Frankfurt. You won't understand any word, but I do say some words now. You would say I gute wie instead of Hallo.
Well, danke for that greeting. For that. The Third King, really, really well done piece of work. How did you get the idea for that, especially to tell the story in this manner?
10 years ago, I had a meeting with a monk from a monastery, and he told me a story that was told more like a myth from Second World War, where peace was possible in war times. And this story was more or less the fundamental initial idea to create the story of the Third King. And then lots of other influences came in.
All right. So was the story told like that from the beginning by using an African-American soldier in the film? Can you elaborate on how that actually came about?
The original idea is French soldiers, German soldiers, and American soldiers meet up in a lodge and have to put their weapons away because the woman who owns the lodge says this is a peaceful area within war times. So it's a very general idea. And I did some research for a very special location in Second World War in the late 1940s, you say?
Yes, 1940s.
Mm-hmm. Early 45, there was a really, really fiercey piece of wartime in the so-called Hurtgenwald. I think it might be also better known in America than in Germany. It was a very, very dark area, a couple of months for American soldiers especially. And I heard of executions of Afro-American soldiers by SS soldiers. And this was like, for me, something really special to hear that in this time of war, Afro-American soldiers were involved into the Second World War. And then I did some more research and tried to find out what was their role, because I thought, okay, like the 40s, I think there was there was no real rights for the Afro-American culture in the States. So I think, why are they fighting for democracy in Nazi Germany. So then for me it was pretty clear this should be my protagonist. Someone who has to struggle in his own country and fight for something really important in a foreign country, and has a family.
Okay, that's a very interesting approach. Can you talk a little bit about the research that you did to actually help write this film in that respect?
Of course. I just read a lot, then I talked a lot to people. I had some contacts to people who were teaching American students in US concerns in Germany in the past. And they were also used to American history. So I did some interviews with them. And then I did a lot of research in the World Wide Web, of course. And yeah, so like lots of interviews to people who have any connection to it, also professors, and a museum that is based in Hürtgen, in the so-called Hürtgenwald, the area where this war, this couple of months of a fierce war between Germany and America took place. I also went there and took a lot of photos to get inspiration for the whole locations. Finally, we shot the film somewhere really different. We shot the film close to Frankfurt because of the funding, but the location is somewhere else in Germany. It's close to the Belgian border.
That's really interesting. So how long did it take to actually shoot the film?
To shoot the film, we had very few days. So this was like fast shooting. I'm pretty experienced as a producer, so I knew that this has to be very economically.
Mm-hmm.
And we had 7 days, but very short days. So
okay.
we shot 35 minutes. The film is 25, so 10 minutes got lost in the cutting room. And we had 7 days, but it was in early January, and early January in Germany means it's late light and early dark. So we had more or less 7 hours because we shot during day, also because of the child. There are lots of restrictions for children in Germany.
Right, understood. Same here in the U.S. Yeah, well, the film was really well executed. I actually watching this film felt cold, and that's what you wanted to convey. I felt really, I wanted a warm cup of tea or something after watching this. And also by shooting during the day, you had great conditions. You know, the conditions were the same, so you didn't have to worry about continuity from day to day with that. I just want to remind everyone we are talking to the director of The Third King, Christoph Oliver Strunck. If you have questions, please put them in the Q&A portal and we'll get to them as time allows. One question, we do have a number of questions, we're going to get to them in a moment, but one question I had for you is, you called this The Third King. Why did you call it The Third King? Really interesting little symbolism going on there with the 3 characters and the actual, piece, chess piece.
Of course, I'm not sure how the American correct word is, but I think it's epiphany, right? It's about the so-called third kings who came to Jesus to present their personal gifts to the freshborn child in Jerusalem. So it's a biblical phrase and a biblical metaphor. And my idea was that the third king is like one of those 3 kings from the myth has been black. So it's up to the audience to say if the third king is the father of the little boy, or it might also be the black soldier who is a symbol for the black king.
Yeah, exactly.
More or less the background. Yeah.
Right, and I could just add to that is sometimes, the black soldier could be seen as like, and no disrespect, as the black sheep, the person, the odd person out. That's a phrase used, sometimes in America as well. So to add to that, um, I don't know, Christoph, if you have access to your chat feature there on your computer, because we have a
I
number of
have.
questions that come in, and they're from a German class, and they actually wrote them in German.
Oh my
And
God, this is like it's also very long. I'm used to a long question when it comes to German. So
right, so can you interpret the first question for us and answer it in English?
should I answer them from the earliest to the latest, or from the latest to the earliest?
From the earliest to latest, unless we've gone over some of the questions
Okay.
as well. So if you could,
Should I read them out loud in German, or?
oh, can you just read out loud in English, and answer it in
Okay,
English?
so I should translate them into English.
Correct.
Okay. Question, Frage. In your film, there's a lot of symbolism to the Bible, the Holy Three Kings or Epiphany. When Jamar enters the house or comes to the lodge, you can see his breath for real. Represents this breath the, oh, I don't know the English word, the English word for it, the smoke you create in church. And
Okay.
does it stand for like a sense of God, I'd say. To be honest, I would love to say yes, but I have to say no. It was just goddamn cold there. We had -5 degrees Celsius. So you saw the breath, and I love it because it gives you like a freezing feeling that you are always close to death when you don't find a place to hide or don't find a place to warm up. So I think the symbolism to death, there might be yes, but there was no real connection to this symbolism of smoke in church.
Okay, interesting. All right, well, good. All right, how about the next question?
In the Bible, the three kings get a warning during a dream that they should not come. To Herod, okay. Is Herod maybe a sign for the war, and that Hans, Jamar, and Ludwig should say no to war in general? And if Jamar does still live, where does he go? Where does he go? Into the war or to his daughter? Oh, love those questions. A lot of philosophical layers in it. This is what the whole film is about philosophy.
So you want to tackle the part about Jamar?
No, I would say I try to answer it in a bit in another way. There is a dream of Jamar, of his daughter. Mm-hmm. This is where he's the closest to his death, when he has his breakdown after he has the wound at his hand. And then he seems to wake up in a way. And at the end of the film, this is the moment when he seems to wake up and has like the visual of his daughter, where I had the idea, it's not sure if he really woke up or is he maybe if he already died. I mean, the film has an open ending, so it's not sure where it ends, but I have a personal interpretation of my own film, of course. And for me, Jamar didn't die. Jamar is still alive. And when he saw his daughter, this is like everything that happens afterwards is something that tells him what he should do next to stay alive. So from my point of view, when he wakes up, he doesn't go back to war. First of all, he has to do what he dreamt, and then he will go back to his daughter. This is what I hope for my protagonist.
Good. So the next question, I think I could translate a little bit about the wounds of Ludwig and Jamar being symbolic. Is that correct?
Of course, yeah. I mean, it's just one hand, but everyone knows this symbol of a wound in the hand of Jesus himself when he's at the cross. So this is, of course, a symbol we used. I tried to use symbols not just as symbols, but they had to make sense for the story in a way. And in this case, it did make sense. So I decided to use it. Second question in the same section.
About the effects of light and darkness in the film, connecting race and the movement from darkness to light and vice versa.
The whole concept of the film has been that we have, like, I was thinking of the idea, how can I tell a deeply human story in a perfect location? And then I thought maybe the best location for a real human story is a location that is the less human as possible. And from my personal view as a German, it is Second World War. So I decided to set a human story into the darkest hours of our own history. So light and darkness in general play a huge role, and everything that is connected to Second World War, and this is also something about race, we all know, it's not just about the Jewish community, it's also about every race that was not accepted by this Nazi regime, is part of this symbolic idea. Does this answer the question in a way?
Right, it does. I like the way you phrased it about, about race and the stain of the war and so forth, how that all intermeshed together. Looks like we have one last question about the deer, that is, and
yes. It turns out to be a favorite of the audience, because people always like, there's like, when it comes to humor, people always say you can't do things wrong in a movie if you put animals or children into a movie. In this case, it's not a comedy, it's a real drama. But the deer seems to be very interesting, very catching for the people. And there is a symbol for those deers. For me, the idea was, when it comes to the location of the whole story, where the whole story is set, it's war times. And the so-called Hurtgenwald, the original inspiration for the location, was a German forest that was really hard by its infrastructure. So all the soldiers on German and on the American side had huge problems during wintertime to orientate themselves. So lots of deaths were caused by friendly fire, for instance. That's a fact we do know today on both sides. And from my point of view, the deer was a symbol for the last peace on Earth in this microcosm, where we still have peace. And this is around the lodge. And we all know from huge fires in the nature, when there is danger, animals used to flee where it's still peaceful. So they gather around the lodge. And this is why I had the idea to put deers there, to give like the inner feeling of a peaceful area within a war area.
Right, sort of like a calming presence during the war.
Yeah.
Makes sense. That's really interesting. I know you shared with us, with me before the interview began, that you had someone's waiting for the deer to gather at the right time and then scatter, and you edited that in. So that's a really nice touch with that. We're almost out of time, but can you tell me what's the one thing or maybe two things that you would like people to take away from this film? A lot of interpretation, a lot of meanings for different people, but for you personally, when someone watches this film, what would you want them to say and take away from this film?
For me, the most important word that I connect with the film is hope. And when it comes to the open ending of the film, it's very, very thrilling to see how the audience receive the ending. Lots of people think it's a dark ending. It's like the soldier will die. That has never been my idea. I always thought of hope. Like, he has a big wound. He might be not in his best constitution, but he will stand up and do what he has to do to feel as a real human again. And like, hope is one thing, and the other thing is communication, and the difference between being yourself and playing a role you have to play. Like, I set those three characters, I mean the adult, four characters. The adult characters have to play a role. One role is the role of a mother, and three other roles are the roles of soldiers that stand for different sides. But at the end, they are all humans. And if they can connect themselves as humans, the solution is always at the horizon. If you play your roles, there will be no solution.
Well,
I think those are basic methods.
Well stated. Some good points to take away. My last question is, as we are about out of time, is do you have plans to turn this into a feature? And if not, what are you working on now?
No, there will be no feature. For me, this was always like a short film. Lots of people are asking me that. I think it could have the potential, but I'm not a guy who wants to do something that he has done in another way. So my next film is a comedy, and it's called Son of Elvis. And it's set in my own home area called Friedberg, close to Frankfurt, where Elvis Presley did his military services in 1958 until 1960. And I tell the story of a so-called Son of Elvis, who stands for the myths of Elvis in this region. And it's a very, very funny side of this region that they today still have the so-called European Elvis Festival taking place there. And it has to be, it's a story about a guy who is in his late 50s and comes home to deal with a conflict with his mother, who is responsible for the lie of his life, that he might be a son of Elvis. No one believed, but everyone took advantage of it and brought the whole idea and the whole life of this guy down. And it's also a story about a German-American friendship, in a way. And it also deals a lot with music. It's about blues music, it's about country music, it's about the idea how all these influences came together and built the rock and roll. So yeah, Son of Elvis.
Wow, sounds very interesting. A huge shift from the Third King, and we wish you the best with that. Well, Christoph, this has been a really pleasure spending some time with you today to get some additional insight on this really remarkable piece of work. We wish you all the best with the continued exhibition of this film and your future work as well, too. Before I let you go, would you like to say a special goodbye to our German-speaking students?
Ja, ich wünsche euch allen einfach, dass ihr mit dem, was ihr gerade studiert, euer persönliches Glück findet. Ich hoffe, das hat jeder von euch verstanden. Und bei all dem Stress und all dem Ärger, den das Filmemachen manchmal auch bringt, hoffe ich, dass ihr euch in schwierigen Momenten immer daran erinnert, warum ihr Filme machen wollt, damit ihr die Leidenschaft nicht verliert.
Well, all I could say is Dankeschön for that special message to our German-speaking students. And I'd like to thank you, the student audience, for joining us for this invigorating and important conversation. For more information about the upcoming 45th Cleveland International Film Festival, please continue to follow CIFF on social media and visit clevelandfilm.org. I'm Eric Siler. Thank you.